This is Beyond the Helmet. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and in this episode, I'm pleased to bring you my conversation with Bryce Petty. Now, Bryce is still the only Baylor quarterback to get a piece of the Big-12 title. He did that the 2 years that he was starting there, and he also finished top 10 in Heisman both years there as well. So after tearing it up, he went, of course, to the NFL, and after a few years there, he exited the game. He's been at AMR Capital, the director of capital markets there, working in real estate development. Now, Bryce is going to tell us about his road to get to Baylor, what it was like playing behind RGIII for Coach Bryles, waiting for his opportunity, and how developing that mindset was able to allow him to see success in life well beyond the football field. And also, special congratulations to Bryce as he just became a father. Now, without any further ado, here is Bryce telling you his story.
At Rush, Rush is our managing partner at AMR. Through a buddy of mine, and it was kind of right about the time to where, we had just got, cleared, through the injury and basically what put me on IR from the Dolphins. And so it was like, hey, we're either going to ramp up, football, and at that time, a lot of times in football, you got feelers out there, so you kind of know, hey, I've got a couple teams that are wanting to work out, that kind of thing. And at that time, I really didn't have anybody that was calling. And so it was kind of like, gear up for the 10-team workout and, be ready to rock and roll that way, which I was fine with. It was going to happen. But when I found Rush, it was just very interesting to where I kind of had two paths a little bit. And the best part about it was I could do them simultaneously. So I could still go work out and do what I needed to do to make sure that, hey, if a team does call, I'm ready. While also, living in a place where I knew I was going to settle down, I was able to kind of just, hey, let's just go see if we can't have a few meetings or find some meetings. And so I was just kind of lucky enough, and I think a lot of it was the Baylor connection. I just hit up a lot of the Baylor guys that have reached out, in the past as far as, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And so I just kind of started talking, and all of a sudden one meeting kind of turned to two, and two to four, and the person that I met set me up with three people, and then all those three people set me up with three people. So before you know it, your web gets, kind of out there. And so it was just one of those things where I would pray every morning in the truck and just be like, God, tell me what you want me to do. Do you want me to do, real estate or do you want me to do football? And the web just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where I kind of started seeing, a little bit of success and a path with real estate. So to your point, it was a blessing that, there was kind of that fallback, because it's hard. Like I said, I'm blessed. I got lucky because I had something that I was passionate about, that I could pick right up. But for a lot of guys, it is hard to find what that next stage is.
Yeah, but it also sounds like it was gradual. Like it wasn't that abrupt, like, oh, it's over. It's like you kind of allowed this to slowly come along. And I think that's a big piece of it too. Right.
And you can take it slow. You can really fill out, what it is that you like about it. And that's the hard part about, when you're an athlete, you've spent your whole life doing one thing. There's no internships, there's no, summer jobs, there's no, most of the guys, myself included, we just kind of get through school just to get through school. And there's not a true plan with, hey, what's going to happen when we get out? Because at 18, 19, 20 years old, like I'm going to the NFL. Like that's what I've been working for. That's what I want to do. And so, I was lucky enough to have, be one of those guys that had that dream to come true. So everything else is just on the back burner, because you're like, hey, if Tom Brady can have a 16-year career, why can't I? And the fact of the matter is just not everybody's Tom Brady. So, it was a beautiful thing that was gradual, and I just took it day by day. And that's kind of how you have to look at a lot of things in life.
Yeah. And, but we sort of jumped right into this. Obviously real estate can mean a lot of things. So do you actually want to jump into what is it specifically that you are doing and how that fits into what AMR's overall view is?
Yeah. So AMR's kind of been through a couple chapters now in the last year and a half, really. So when I came in, it was simply to, hey, let's go network. My specific title is Director of Capital Markets. Really, it's just a fancy thing to say that. To the viewers out there that don't really know how it works, because I'm only saying this because I didn't know how it worked. But when you go buy a property, you'll have debt and then you'll have equity. and it's just like a down payment on a house. That's what you're going to put up out of your bank, finance the rest. Well, that's what I have to go do. So, typically those checks can be anywhere from, 500,000, or they can be, to a lot of your multifamily guys that are these bigger properties, they can be $10 million checks. And so you got to go raise that $10 million. And so, when we started, it was more of the syndicate model. We wanted to be third party. Rush has had a lot of success in his past with owning and operating properties. Retired in about 2016, 2017. Loves to tell people he failed at retirement, came back. And so he kind of wanted to get back in the game a little bit. And so we were kind of syndicating a little bit. And then he just kind of got, it's one of those things that, like, man, when you're an alpha, you're an alpha. So you can't really, if you know a certain model that works and you get with people that don't necessarily have that same viewpoint, you're like, all right, I'll just do it myself, kind of thing. And that's kind of where we got to probably middle of the year last year. I started doing some multifamily stuff, but the problem was, multifamily in Dallas, Fort Worth especially, is very competitive. It's very competitive. You have a lot of outside money, whether it's overseas or, East, West Coast. You just have a lot of firms that want to come to DFW. And so we were getting bid out like crazy. And then at the same time, the purchase prices involved in multifamily were so expensive that as an operator, you don't really make any money. You don't make any money till like year 12, and you're never really going to hold that long. So it was just kind of tough for us to find some things. And then as November of last year, we kind of stumbled upon a storage facility that was an existing storage facility. So it was already stabilized. It was 90 occupied. And we started underwriting it, and we were like, holy smokes, man, this thing is pumping out cash. Like, this will be a great deal. And so we were actually talking about doing that in-house with just AMR's money. And then we started, finding a lot more of them. And so now we've kind of flipped the chapter to not just syndicating, not just multifamily, but we're actually building out a storage facility, portfolio. And so still raising money, still doing that day to day. But we've kind of transitioned. So now AMR Capital is fully owning and operating storage facilities, existing storage facilities, around Texas and the surrounding states.
Well, it's awesome that it feels like a dynamic environment. You're not pigeonholed into doing one thing. You now have options to like actually just look to see what the opportunities are and then maneuver accordingly.
That's right. Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about, real estate in general, is it's something new every day, and that's the fun part about going to work every day. But, especially with the COVID stuff as well, I mean, you got to be able to adjust. And that's what, football has taught me so many different things about life, whether it's, marriage or friendships or even, now the next career path. The ability to adjust and remain calm adjusting, is an important deal. So.
Definitely. There's so much with sports in general, how it can spill over to other parts of your life. What I really wanted to do is just sort of back into how you get here, because I think so much got made about RG3 and everything that he did, which is great and everything, but like when you look to see when was Baylor winning Big-12 titles, there's a certain quarterback that was at the top of that list. So can we just bring this back for when you were in high school, because Baylor, it's pre-RG3. I mean, they're not even a 500 team.
Yep.
You're pretty highly touted quarterback prospect. How does that road to Baylor, come together for you?
Yeah. Shoot, man. Like a lot of things in my life, it worked out how I didn't want it to work out. and I say that in the utmost respect for Baylor, because I would never, ever trade, my days there at Baylor. We had incredible teams, incredible people there. But in saying that, I was a huge SEC guy growing up. So we were in Arkansas. That's where I grew up, first to ninth grade. So we were calling hogs, every day in elementary school. But, my family, both my grandparents and pretty much everybody but us were in Louisiana. So, 03, 07, like, LSU had some teams, with Nick Saban there and everything. So it was, hey, I'm either going to LSU or Arkansas. And so we ended up moving to Texas, and still I was like one of the only kids that never wore like an A&M shirt or a Texas shirt. I didn't even know anything about those schools. I never even watched them. I was watching SEC football every Saturday. And so I actually, was able to go to Knoxville, and Philip Fulmer in Tennessee offered me a scholarship, and I guess June going into my senior year. Just signed a 7-year extension. Loved him. Dave Clawson was the OC there. Had a pretty good pedigree, and so I kind of fell in love with it, and so I committed there. Well, fast forward, I think they went like, it wasn't good. It was like 3-8 maybe, something like that. But we were actually at the Florida game for my official, and it's fun to see 100,000 people in a stadium. It's not fun seeing 100,000 people in a stadium when they boo. And so it was like, holy smokes, what am I getting into? But anyways, so they actually, ended up firing Philip Fulmer. Kiffin, it was the coach that came in, and actually, believe it or not, had me and Taj Boyd committed at the same time. Taj Boyd went and had a great career with Clemson and on in the NFL, actually the Jets as well. So I guess I follow him too much. But anyway, so we ended up feeling like a little rocky, and ended up decommitting. Well, Coach Montgomery was the OC at Baylor at the time, and he was in Coach's office like within the next week. And he's like, I really want you to come down to Waco. I want you to meet Coach Briles. And, I met Coach Briles. And the beautiful thing about, Coach Briles is he's the same guy that you see on TV and on interviews as he is in person. And, he sat there and told me in his office, he's like, listen, we got a guy that's I think is going to be a stud. So we're really not looking for a quarterback. But we like you if you want to come in. So it was one of those things that, when you ask a girl out, it's like, I'm really not looking, but sure, why not? It's kind of one of those things. And so anyways, it was actually, January when I decommitted from Tennessee. So it was kind of getting to that point of like, man, I got to figure out where to go. And so anyways, the 14-hour drive that I thought I was going to love being away from home compared to the hour and 10-minute drive, from Waco to Midlothian. And I just I love that mixed in with, Coach Briles being honestly, brutally, really. And Coach Montgomery was just he was like, man, just get here. And so we ended up going there, whatever it was, 1,400 something days between, last start in high school, first start in college. There's a lot of stuff in between there. But it was kind of a perfect storm to, an unbelievable 13 and 14 run, for Baylor, because, Griff and Briles a lot with a lot of other guys put us on the map. And, when Texas and A&M came to school anymore, it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, it's Texas, I'll commit. It was like, yeah, well, I got Waco, I can go play as a freshman, and they're good, and so it was a lot of crazy cool things that happened all at the same time to kind of build this I guess beautiful trajectory of 2 Big-12 championships, a new stadium, and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, so as you alluded to, our Coach Briles was feeling pretty confident about this guy Robert that he had there, and that confidence paid dividends. But in 2012, before you get a chance to really get out there, they go with Nick Florence. So you came in under the pretense of, I'm not the guy right away. But do you remember going into that year thinking like it should be me? Do you recall how that played out?
Oh, I was pissed. Yeah. There was and Nick, Nick's a good buddy of mine. But yeah, that was tough because you have the moment of as a freshman coming in from high school, we weren't real successful. And I've always kind of battled with like that. I kind of look around and, you see guys, that are highly competitive, very successful, that don't look around and it's I'm the best guy here and I'll show you, that kind of deal. I was always kind of a feeler outer, I wanted to feel out stuff. So being 18 going in, to Waco was a perfect scenario for me because I get to kind of feel things out. Where am I at, in 7-on-7, where am I at in team drills and all that kind of stuff. But then, once we came back that next summer, it was like, perfect, here we go, I'm running. And, and then Griff had his unbelievable year, really came out of nowhere when I was watching that dude throw his, in whatever that was, 11 to, well, I guess 10 to 11, I was like, dude, what did this guy eat? I mean, he just got jacked up and was throwing the ball like 80 yards. The ball would whistle. It was crazy. But anyways, so being behind him that year was everything in me was just competing with Nick and really trying to show Bryles, like, hey, you got a dude once Griff leaves. Like, this train's not stopping. And even though I say that, I don't even know if I thought about Nick. You know, I thought it was always going to be, you know, Griff and me. Well, we get into spring ball the next year, and there's not even a competition. It's like, you know, Nick's running with ones, I'm running with twos, and that was it. And, you know, then you kind of, not that I'd read a whole lot of the interviews or whatever, but you see Bryles and yeah, it's competition. You know, no, there's his favorite thing to say is keys to the car. You know, there's no keys to the car yet for anybody. And I'm sitting here going like, well, dude, give me a chance then. I built some like animosity a little bit towards me, just to that situation, not the Bryles, not the Nick, whatever, just that situation of like, man, what the heck? I'm sitting here, you know, and at that point I was like in the best shape of my life. I was, you know, in physical shape anyways, and then throwing the ball better than I've probably ever had in my life. And so I just could not figure out. I was like, I know the offense, you know, I feel like, you know, guys respect me in that matter. What the heck? And but that was actually the best growing year for me, to be totally honest with you, is because, you know, after that first game, I had almost like a built up selfishness towards like entitlement almost, you know, like this should be me because everything that I listed, instead of looking at the bigger picture and being like, well, it's bigger than you, you know? And so I remember vividly one night just being like, all right, if I'm going to be a backup quarterback, I'm going to try and be the best backup quarterback I can be in the country. Like there's no one that's going to be a better backup quarterback than me, if that's what I have to do. And so honestly, man, it just kind of changed my whole perspective on a lot of different things. And, you know, to where that next off season, it was go time. And shoot, man, we ended up going, you know, 10-3 and 11-2 and rocking and rolling, and 2 Big-12 championships, and it couldn't have been better.
Yeah. So how much does that carry over to when you get to the NFL? Because, you know, even though you're a 4th round pick, which is pretty high for a quarterback, I mean, you don't draft someone there unless you have expectations for them. But they get drafted to a team where, you know, there's veteran guys. How was it easy for you to kind of flip the switch again? Like, okay, I'm back to the backup quarterback scenario. I'm just going to have to be the best backup I can until it's my time. I mean, I'm sure that had to pave the way for that mindset in the NFL.
Yeah, no. It did, you know, because there was a lot of growing, and I'll be the first one to tell you, like, there's no way that I would have been ready, you know, to be a starter, you know, in the league. There was so much that I needed to learn, because our offense at Baylor, there wasn't a whole lot of from a mental aspect on a quarterback's plate. There wasn't a whole lot for us to do. You know, every play had a designated, you know, protection scheme. Every run game, you know, our run scheme that we had, it was just call it, ball it, kind of roll. Where in the NFL, everything was different. You know, you weren't just seeing cover 4 like you do, and you know, when you play TCU, play a little cover 6, but you know, it's not the same coverage every game. There's blitz schemes, there's packages, there's situational football, which was crazy to me because, shoot, man, at 4th and 8, coach was punting. You know, I mean, coach was throwing. You know, at Baylor, whereas in the NFL, you know, if it's 3rd and 6, you want to run just to where you get a manageable, you know, punting distance, and then it was just a totally different scope of football that I had been, you know, really living in the last 5 years. And so I needed to learn. And so that was where, you know, Fitz was incredible for me because, you know, one, he was always willing to teach, but at the same time too, he was like the older brother I never wanted, you know, and you know, mess with me just constantly. But I loved every part of that rookie year. Going into the second year, you know, I felt a lot more comfortable with what was asked of me and what was needed from me, expected rather. You know, but then we drafted Hackenberg, you know, in the second round, which was tough because, to your point, the draft slot of a quarterback in particular is a very interesting political world. Now, granted, it doesn't matter. When you get your opportunity, you get your opportunity, and Tom Brady is a perfect example of that. But the growth that I had back in college of that, like, hey, I got every rep of the twos. You get better competition. You know, you got more on your plate. All that kind of stuff was a little bit diminished. You know, when I got to my second year and kind of gearing up to be like, hey, let's start getting this train rolling a little bit. And so I'm just I'm one of those guys that I like feeling things out, but the way that I get over that is through reps, and I get to see success and build on success. And so that was where I had to have a different mentality, because it was like, okay, now you don't get reps. You know, you're number 2/3 because they drafted this kid in the second round. They're gearing him up, you know, to start. And, you know, now everything goes from, you know, the actual physical reps to everything's got to be mental reps. And so that was kind of a different culture for me a little bit, you know, in that world too. And so it definitely helped build on those blocks. But at the same time too, I had to adopt kind of a new strategy, and that you got to be ready when your numbers call. And so you still have to prepare. Everybody says prepare like a starter. No one actually does. I shouldn't say that's a blanket statement, but I was trying to do everything I could to actually prepare like I was a starter without reps. And so in the NFL, it's just a totally different world.
Right. Yeah. So when you ultimately, I believe it's against the Patriots, it's your shoulder injury that you get. If you're doing everything you can with limited reps, and you finally get your chance despite all this, and then an injury happens, how do you deal with that? Where I'm sure you were just so pumped to get out there, and then just like that's taken from you. I mean, that's such a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, man, such is life. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy saying that, but that was my story, man. That was my story. And so you've always got two choices. You know, there's always a fork in the road. You can take, you know, choice A or door A, or you can take door B. And a lot of times, you know, if door A is to, you know, strap up and tie your shoes a little bit tighter and get to hiking, then door B is just to give up, you know, and well, it's not going to work out, you know, because everything into my career to that point never really worked out how I thought it was, right? But in saying that, looking back, it always was better. And so for me, I'm a man of faith, but that's where that faith kind of stepped in and provided a lot for me, because, you know, hey man, life's not working out, but I know that there's a plan that's kind of set. And so I just got to, you know, maintain the course, maintain my character, be a good person, and try to work through, you know, whatever my vision of what life's supposed to be like, and actually act out what my life is, if that makes sense. So, because I think goals and dreams and ambitions are good. Like if you don't have that, you're pretty much dead, right? You got to have something to work for, but you also have to kind of going back to our adjust, you know, comment earlier, you got to be able to adjust and adapt to what life brings you, because it's just not going to work out a lot of times to most people how, you know, you kind of foresee it happening in your head. So, you know, to have that happen, again, to me was a hurdle, another roadblock in you know, my at that time, my illustrious NFL career, right? So it was just one of those things that I had to move through. And that was a gut punch to the positivity, really, because, you know, it would have been very easy to just sit back and be like, well, you know, my NFL career is blowing, I'll get reps and all this kind of stuff anyways. And there's a lot of negativity in that. But then now you look down the road and I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to, you know, either potential investors or big guys in offices where I would never be. And I talk about playing the Patriots. You know, I talk about playing, you know, in the NFL. And so everything kind of works out. It's just, you know, sometimes a different way or not where you really anticipate it.
Sure. Now, the what if game is such a bad game to play, but
Yeah.
I have to ask, do you ever think about if it wasn't the Jets, if it wasn't Coach Bowles, and that's nothing against Coach Bowles, but if it's a different scheme or a different organization, do you just imagine or ever go through that mental exercise of like, man, this could have played out so many different ways. I wish X.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's human nature, right? So I think I'd be lying to you if I didn't, if I said, oh, no, I don't think about the what ifs. I think to me, the what ifs are maybe not the, where I was drafted or the reps, the coaches or whatever. It's just more of, I take it another way. It's what if I would have actually trained harder? What if I would have watched more film? What if I would have played more mental reps? What if I'd have gone, into the facility, by myself and ran through those things more, right? And because my thing is, man, it's at the end of the day, your success and failure, again, like I said, it's already been written out as for you to play through, but you learn so much from your failures, right? I don't like to change how life has happened. I don't like to play the regret game or the what if game, just because what if that stuff hadn't have happened and it would have gone exactly how, I wanted it to go? What would I have learned from that? Whereas I can sit here and tell you in this chair, man, I learned a hell of a lot from all that stuff that happened as me as a person, me as a husband and maybe, a soon to be dad. And then, as a professional and, career A, B, C, D, and so that's where it's hard for me to play that game, just because of life lessons that are taught through failure. It's the life lessons that are taught through hard times, the hurdles that inevitably get you to your mountaintop, and you get to look back and be like, that's exactly why I went through that.
Amen, man. Preach,
yeah.
Preach. Yeah. All right. So just a little bit different. When you look at particularly the receivers that, Robert was, throwing to, Josh Gordon, Terrence Williams, Kendall Wright, but even the guys that you were throwing to, I mean, the list of guys, nuts. So obviously, Coach Bryles knew a thing or two about, recruiting the right receivers, but, when it comes to actually playing, do you have a take on, would you rather have, incredible receivers, incredible linemen, or incredible running backs versus just average? But like, what skill group around you was going to give you the biggest edge? And I know that you have to be a little biased about receivers, considering
yeah,
what
right.
you're used
Shoot,
to.
man, I've never actually been asked that before. That's interesting. I'm gonna have several texts on my phone after this. All right, so my initial gut reaction to that is that if you don't have time to throw the ball, it does not matter if you have Josh Gordon, OBJ, Terrell Owens, Jerry Wright. It don't matter who you have. You're going to struggle getting the ball to them. So you got to have 5 incredible guys up front. Now, in saying that, there's very few times where, in the context of throwing the ball, that 5 guys can pick up 6 guys. So you have to have an incredible running back that can not only tote the rock and put you in good positions, but also
such a diplomatic, political answer.
Don't do it. I'm not done yet. So you got to have a guy that can tote the rock, put you in good situations. The second threes, that way you can go downfield, but also pick up blocks. And then thirdly, you have to have incredible receivers, because if you just have average receivers, then it doesn't matter if you have a great line or a great back to get you a second three. They can't run around. So I think how I would layer that is to say that you have to have 3 incredible groups of teammates there, 10 guys, if you will, that help you make me look a lot better than he was. Sucker.
Well played, sir.
Yeah. Checkmate.
Didn't shut off the coach, though, so I guess, players are more important than coaches.
That's right. And you got to have a coach that calls plays. That's right.
Bryce, to wrap this up, I want to run through what I call the gauntlet with you. It's just a couple quick hitter questions. I think this is a good precursor for. So from the jump, man, when it comes to winning a game, what's most important? Number 1 offense or number 1 defense?
Special teams a lot of times. Special teams win games a lot of times.
Fair
No, I
point.
mean, you know the saying, man. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. So you can't. I'm telling you, man. You can't do anything in life without people around you. And again, it's just what football has taught me. But I know that you're gonna hate my answers to these questions if there are a lot of those. But I've been around too many good teams to where, as great as and statistically our was, throughout kind of my tenure at Baylor, our defense was stout. And especially 13 and 14 with those guys, they were really, really good. They made stops when we needed them. And so you can't have that without the other. So
Fair enough.
you're going to hate it.
Players or scheme?
Ooh, I will tell you this. I learned this in the NFL. If you can have as great a scheme as you want, but if you don't have the players that fit that scheme, it'll never work. On the flip side of that, you can have I'm trying to think of which one I said first. Greatest scheme, but if you don't have the players, yeah. So if you can have the greatest players and you can have a terrible scheme, and that doesn't work. So again, it's another marriage between the two, and the best teams that are out there, they have coaches draft the players that fit their scheme. Because you can, I'm not going to list anybody, but there's a lot of guys out there that you kind of watch on tape that will be very successful here, and then they go over here and they're not successful. And that was kind of a tough thing with the NFL, because you see certain organizations that have been successful for a long time, and they're, the head coach is boss man. He's the one that picks guys, drafts guys, put those guys in those schemes because he knows those schemes. And, so you can have a highly, talented player in a bad scheme, and it's tough. That's the beautiful thing about watching Pat Mahomes. I mean, he is a talented player through and through. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying if he's in any other, organization that he's not Pat Mahomes. But the beautiful thing is him and Andy Reid together are like a mad scientist. Andy Reid gets to have as much fun as he wants to. And so that's fun about watching good ball, is when you have great players and great schemes, and it's a beautiful little marriage there.
Absolutely. And a slight tangent to that is, Josh McDaniels, I live in the New England area, has gotten a lot of praise over the years. So we'll see that how does he now tailor a new scheme to obviously young kid with a different skill set. So it's going to be one of those things that, how good is your scheme to now match the new talent that you have. But agreed. All right. So now you can't be diplomatic, because I'm going to ask, did you have a pregame ritual that you stuck to?
Man, I never really did, but I had, I would do the same thing every time, if that makes sense. But I didn't really necessarily see it as a ritual. But I would say more or less of what I listened to was a ritual, because I had, in a weird way, I don't know how it happened, but I had Justin Timberlake and then Florence and the Machine as my playlist. I don't know how it happened, but it was like a perfect, but kind of chill, overlay, because as a quarterback, you can't be wilding out, you can't be doing the smelling salts and all that kind of stuff. You kind of have to be locked in your zone, and or at least for me, anyways. And so that was kind of my pregame ritual, was turn the headphones on and listen to JT and Florence. So kind of weird.
Hey, whatever works, right?
Yeah.
Now, was there ever one player that you just wish you would have had a chance to play with?
Oh, let's see. I think for whatever reason, kind of interesting that his name kind of pops up in my head. Well, I'll give you two guys. One, because I was a huge Brett Favre fan. So I would love to play with Brett Favre, and just get to sling the rock with him. But oddly enough, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of the nostalgia of it, but like Deion Sanders, I think would be a lot of fun to especially when he was in his obviously, but going the defense to offense and being around guys like that. I don't know why his name popped up, but I think it'd just be fun to watch him play.
Dion and Randy are two names that always pop up when I
Yeah,
ask.
yeah, yeah. Randy would. I don't know why I didn't think of Randy first. That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. Would have been fun.
All right. So lastly, and I think it's most important, given everything you were able to accomplish athletically, you've been able to transition to a great second career. What's the best piece of advice that you would give?
Shoot, man, I don't know if that's something I can wrap up. I could talk on that for hours. No, I think the first thing that comes to mind is again to dive in, but it's dive into the opportunity that is your second career. Again, kind of going back, a lot of guys have a hard time with the notion of what do I do next. And to me, I just kind of saw that as an opportunity. Granted, it was kind of tossed up to me a little bit, probably before some other guys get, that opportunity. But again, it all goes back to your mentality of certain things. So second career as a opportunity to start fresh, to start new, to do what you're passionate about. And because a lot of guys, the second career is the majority of your life. It's crazy because you think of, I spent 22 years, but I will have that and some in my second career. Just because of where life leads you, in those moments. So embrace the opportunity, embrace the change, but also love the change, love the process of kind of growing and finding out what you're passionate about, and then lastly you dive in. There's no tiptoeing through life at that point. You gotta rock and roll and make it happen. That's kind of what a lot of these guys have been able to do when they get to the league, or they get to wherever they're at athletically. They had to make it happen somehow. So dive in and make it happen.
Dive in. Awesome.
Bryce, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
No doubt. Thank you for the green and gold.
Oh, man, of course. For you and Graylin Arnold and any other Baylor Bear I get a chance to talk to.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for having me, man. I had a great time.